The Checkpoint is presented by GM Pharma, the first international multinational pharmaceutical company in Georgia. GM Pharma, to serve those who need it most.
Current appreciation trend of Lari, however, raises some questions not only in the local but foreign business community as well. And Fady Asly, CEO of the International Chamber of Commerce of Georgia, summed up all of them in one interview. Investments, and namely FDI, was another big topic that we have discussed in this sit-down interview with the CEO of ICC Georgia. I read your Facebook post where you wrote that you could not really understand the current trend of Lari's strengthening. What we hear from the experts is that this strengthening is mainly driven by the three forces. One is dollar being depreciating globally, Georgia's exports increasing, trade figures generally, and also remittances. Why do you think that these fundamentals are not sufficient for this tendency?
You know, I use my logic more than I use the figures. I want to compare 2020 or 2021 or 2022 to 2019, which was the last normal year before the pandemic. In 2019, the Lari was devaluing. That was the trend. At a time, the economy was much stronger than it is now in 2021. If you look at the figures of 2021, you see that from the tourism we got like 1/3 of what we had in 2019. If I'm not mistaken, it's about 1/3. This means we are missing $2 billion compared to 2019. Foreign investment is totally inexistent. Exports have increased, but imports have increased even more. So if you look and you make like a small arithmetic, not even mathematical account, arithmetic, you realize that there is no explanation why the Lari should strengthen to that extent. In addition to that, we have chronic political instability. We have external political instability. So when I look at the picture like this, it doesn't make sense to me from the macroeconomic angle how the Lari can strengthen to that extent unless there are dollars being injected in the economy that we don't know about. Now, to go back to the foreign remittances, they have increased because people need money. I mean, most families have people who are living abroad who send them money. And because of the hardship due to the pandemic, people abroad, Georgians abroad, are sending more money. In addition to that, more Georgians have left Georgia in the past 2 years, so they are sending more money. Now the remittances are like about 2.5 billion or something like this. This means that they have increased by 1 billion compared to 2019, because it was about 1.3 billion in 2019. This $1 billion does not justify the strengthening of the Lari since the 15th of November at this speed. This means that there is something going on with the Lari that goes beyond my understanding as a businessman and as someone who looks into those figures. So I cannot explain it with the parameters that we have in hand. Only the National Bank knows the truth, but honestly, I don't believe that they are telling what's going on.
You also said that you feared that these gymnastics with Lari, as you called it, would backfire. What do you mean more precisely?
Yes, it will backfire because, you know, there is something called the pendulum effect. If, you know, in those old clocks, you have a pendulum of the clock that goes left and right. When you take the pendulum and you hold it artificially to one extreme and then you release it, it doesn't stop in the middle, it goes to the other extreme. So I believe, my personal opinion, is that the Lari will devalue very quickly at one stage. This means that now people want to keep their money in Lari, and because they feel that the Lari is strengthening, but this is a very dangerous game. And one morning we can wake up and realize that the Lari became 3 and 3.5, like this, because there are no economic parameters that I see that can explain the strengthening at the Lari. At a time, if you remember, for the past 8 years, every time the Lari devalued, the government said yes, because our trading partners' currencies is devaluing. Our main trading partners' currency is devaluing. That's why we are devaluing. Well, today the Turkish lira is devaluing and the ruble is devaluing. Why is the Lari strengthening? I'm following their own logic, if I have to follow. Why before, when it was devaluing, we were linked to the devaluation of the trading partners, and now they are devaluing and we are strengthening? There's something that does not make sense in all this.
Do you eliminate the spillover effect that the tightened monetary policy could have also on Lari strengthening?
Everything has an effect, but not to that extent. This means the strengthening of the Lari from 3.2 to 2.9 in the span of 2 months goes beyond the tightening of any policy. The tightening of the economic policy cannot have such an immediate effect on the strengthening of the Lari, okay? To make it very simple, there are a lot of dollars entering in the economy, but we don't see them, okay? This means that probably the banks are selling lot of dollars and buying lot of Laris, okay? This can be something that we don't see in the economy because it's not accounted for. The National Bank would know this. This means if the banks are selling their own reserve, the private banks, and buying Laris, this would strengthen the Lari, you see? So why are the banks doing this? I don't know. And also, I mean, we have to understand that the strengthening of the Lari or the devaluation of the Lari to strong extremes is very bad for the economy. Because if you look at our exports for the past year, the exports were increasing steadily. When you strengthen your Lari, you become less competitive. Exporters will be suffering now. They will be less competitive to export their goods.
In this current situation and considering the pandemic, would you say that strengthened Lari is helping to the more certainty for doing business in Georgia? What does your experience of doing business logic tell you?
So what we need is stability of the currency. We don't need the Lari to devalue 30% overnight or to strengthen 30% overnight. We need a stable currency so importers can build on it, exporters can build on it, and people get used to it. So there will be no problem with the inflation, okay, and no handicaps for the exporters. Now the only factor that is positive for the government when the Lari strengthens is the ratio of debt to GDP decreases. You know, we were like 61%. Because the Lari was at 3.3. Now when the Lari is at 2.9, then there may be at 50. I don't want to throw a figure like this, but they are definitely lower than 60%. Now if the government has a goal to borrow more money because the ratio went down, now is the perfect time for them. So I'm wondering to myself, is it a game that the government is kind of playing to borrow more money because the ratio has gone down based on what the IMF has? I don't know. There is something abnormal. That's a fact. The rate, such a strengthening in such a short time is abnormal. It does not make sense when you look at all the economic parameters that we have in hand.
Yeah, you mentioned that FDI is practically non-existent in Georgia. I would agree this is the weakest point of these fundamentals that we're talking about when talking about Lari strengthening. I don't know if you're following currently, but US ambassador has been very vocal about the foreign direct investment, and also bringing the example of Anaklia.
After visiting Poti, I went up to Anaklia to take a look at the site there, and it just broke my heart because, of course, this year there are supposed to be ships going in and out of that port. It's supposed to be open for business this year had the project continued as planned, and I think it's a real missed opportunity.
Do you think that Georgia is facing missed opportunities?
Look, Georgia has a lot of potential for foreign direct investment, a lot. I mean, in my opinion, if there was a sound policy from the government to encourage foreign investment, we could easily have $4 to $5 billion a year. If there was a sound policy and if the government was investor-friendly, foreign investor-friendly. You know, it's not subject to debate anymore. The government doesn't want FDI. The government doesn't want foreign investors. They want foreign investors maybe coming from Australia, New Zealand, and Western Europe, with the limit being the city of Marseille in France. They don't want any foreign investor south of the city of Marseille. The government has xenophobic policies regarding foreign investment. It's obvious, I mean. That's why I don't want to debate FDI. Every time we say the government should do this, the government should change policy. As long as this government is in power with this vision regarding foreigners, there will never be FDI in Georgia. I mean, many times we have spoken about it. The government has done its best to screw foreign investors, whether by canceling their residencies, confiscating the residencies, refusing to give them residencies after they did their investments here, defrauding them in the courts, protecting the Georgians, I mean, helping the Georgians who screwed foreign investors in the courts. All the policy of the government has been to undermine foreign investment in Georgia. Everything. From the day Bidzina Ivanishvili came to power, this has been his line. He doesn't want foreign investors in Georgia. So we have two speeches. We have the speech of the government that says we want foreign investors, which is total bullshit. And then you have the security services who are doing their best to scare off foreign investors. And that's why we don't have. Today, if you look at the figures, the first 3 quarters of 2021, we have $730 million of foreign direct investments. 85% of it is reinvestment. This means that companies that operate here since years, most of them are Georgian companies that are registered abroad, most of them. And then you have 4% that is debt, foreign debt that we borrowed, like from, I don't know, Citibank or from BNP Paribas, okay, companies here like Wissol or someone else. And then you have equity investment, which is the real foreign investment. This means maybe not the real, because probably it's some Georgian companies registered in some fiscal paradise somewhere, okay? Okay, so we don't have foreigners, we have very few foreigners coming here, and those who are coming, you know, they buy an apartment or something like this. It doesn't really move the economy that much. If you look at the figures of 2021, and you look at the greenfield foreign investment in general worldwide, compared to 2019, there was a decrease of 30% worldwide in greenfield foreign direct investment. In Georgia, the decrease was of 80%. So it's way more than the average. And Georgia is one of the countries where the greenfield foreign investment was the most decreased in the world. It ranks like among the last 7, 8 countries. All this is because the government doesn't want FDI. So let's stop anymore trying even to speak about it, because as long as this government is going to be in power, there will not be foreign investment in Georgia. And the problem is that even if the government changes, We have a new government. Or even if the government changes policy, and then they say, no, 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 let's open it for everyone. It will take 4 or 5 years to regain some credibility.
What does your personal experience of doing business tell you?
You know, I deal with FDI. I mean, you know, I have a consultancy firm based in Dubai, and we bring investors to the whole region here and to Africa and everywhere. And when we speak to them about Georgia, everyone says, no, 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 no Georgia, okay? When we speak to them about Albania, they say, no, 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 no Albania, okay? Bosnia, mainly. No Bosnia, no Georgia. Those are the 2 countries that they don't want to touch, because those 2 countries screwed foreign investors in the past. Bosnia, by increasing the taxes, at a time they had promised that the taxes will not move, so all those who invested there got screwed. And Georgia, because they screwed every foreign investor who came here. So no one wants to touch.
You talked about the xenophobic attitudes of the government to certain investors. U.S. Ambassador mentioned U.S. helping Georgia with the critical infrastructure of investor screening mechanism.
We and others have been working with Georgia on developing a critical infrastructure investor screening mechanism like CFIUS, but something that would be appropriate for Georgia, to make sure that Georgia knows who is investing in its critical infrastructure, who is owning it. And there's layers and layers before you can really sort out who's got a piece of some of the main infrastructure here that is not only potentially vulnerable, but that is then critical to this idea of an East-West hub.
Do you think that could be one direction that could help eliminate what you were talking about?
Look, everything that's being done could help, but the issue is to have investors coming in, you see? Who can protect them? Do you think that the US Embassy can protect an American investor here? Look what happened to Anaklia. The US Embassy was able to, I mean, this was an American, mainly American investment. They couldn't. No one can protect foreign investors here. That's why I don't bring foreign investors to Georgia, because I cannot protect them. This means if they have a problem and they came under my responsibility, I cannot solve their problem. So, all this are kind of carrots that the US government is showing the government, trying to entice them, but they don't want. Bidzina Ivanishvili does not want foreign investors here. It's as simple as that.
The Checkpoint is presented by GM Pharma, the first international multinational pharmaceutical company in Georgia. GM Pharma, to serve those who need it most.